To the overview of the petition process in Amarillo. Here's how it works. Initiating a petition. The process begins when a committee or group presents a letter of intent to the city secretary's office. This letter must include the ordinance they wish to propose, be notarized, be signed by at least 5 registered voters from Amarillo, and declare their intention to start a petition. Collecting signatures. Once the letter is submitted, the petitioners have 120 days to collect signatures. The number of required signatures is 5% of the registered voters within the city limits of Amarillo, a figure determined by the city secretary at the start of the 120-day period. Signatures must be from registered voters who live inside the city limits. Petition sheets and affidavit of circulator. Signatures must be collected on a uniform petition sheet, which includes the proposed ordinance. Each signer must provide their name as it appears on their voter registration card, signature, date of birth or voter registration number, county of registration, their address as it appears on their voter registration card, and the date signed. The person collecting the signatures, known as the circulator, must complete an affidavit of circulator. This affidavit confirms the authenticity of the signatures on the sheet, and it must be signed, dated, notarized, and provide an accurate count of the signatures it represents. Submitting and verifying signatures. After collecting signatures, petitioners submit them to the city secretary's office, which has 21 days to verify them. The office first checks the affidavit of circulator for each set of signatures to ensure it is signed, dated, notarized, and accurately represents the number of signatures. If the affidavit is found to be incorrect, e.g., incorrectly dated, unsigned, or improperly notarized, all signatures it represents are invalidated. This is to ensure the integrity of the petition process and prevent potential fraud, while staying within legal procedures outlined in state and local law. For affidavits that pass the initial check, each signature is then verified against voter registration records. The city secretary's office confirms the signer's registration status and the accuracy of the information provided on the petition, such as name, date of birth or voter registration number, and county of registration. Signatures that do not match voter records or are associated with an incorrect affidavit are invalidated. Only valid signatures count towards meeting the required threshold, 5% of registered voters. Decision by City Council. If the required number of valid signatures is met, the originating organization is notified. The proposed ordinance is then presented at the next City Council meeting. The Council has 30 days to make a decision. They can adopt the ordinance as is, propose a revised ordinance, or take no action. If no action is taken or a revised ordinance is proposed, the organizing group has 20 days to request that the ordinance be put to a citywide vote. By engaging in the petition process, communities can ensure their voices are heard and contribute actively to the shaping of policies that affect their lives. To the overview of the petition process in Amarillo. Here's how it works. Initiating a petition. The process begins when a committee or group presents a letter of intent to the city secretary's office. This letter must include the ordinance they wish to propose, be notarized, be signed by at least 5 registered voters from Amarillo, and declare their intention to start a petition. Collecting signatures. Once the letter is submitted, the petitioners have 120 days to collect signatures. The number of required signatures is 5% of the registered voters within the city limits of Amarillo, a figure determined by the city secretary at the start of the 120-day period. Signatures must be from registered voters who live inside the city limits. Petition sheets and affidavit of circulator. Signatures must be collected on a uniform petition sheet, which includes the proposed ordinance. Each signer must provide their name as it appears on their voter registration card, signature, date of birth or voter registration number, county of registration, their address as it appears on their voter registration card, and the date signed. The person collecting the signatures, known as the circulator, must complete an affidavit of circulator. This affidavit confirms the authenticity of the signatures on the sheet, and it must be signed, dated, notarized, and provide an accurate count of the signatures it represents. Submitting and verifying signatures. After collecting signatures, petitioners submit them to the city secretary's office, which has 21 days to verify them. The office first checks the affidavit of circulator for each set of signatures to ensure it is signed, dated, notarized, and accurately represents the number of signatures. If the affidavit is found to be incorrect, e.g., incorrectly dated, unsigned, or improperly notarized, all signatures it represents are invalidated. This is to ensure the integrity of the petition process and prevent potential fraud, while staying within legal procedures outlined in state and local law. For affidavits that pass the initial check, each signature is then verified against voter registration records. The city secretary's office confirms the signer's registration status and the accuracy of the information provided on the petition, such as
All right, I think everyone's here. We hope everyone's ready. All media, cameras going. Y'all are good? All right. Well, thank everyone for coming on short notice today. Today we have City Secretary Stephanie Coggins, Mayor Cole Stanley. He will talk about the petition ordinance. We'll start with Stephanie Coggins.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Coggins, City Secretary for the City of Amarillo. We just wanted to report to the public today that the petition that was submitted to us back in April has been validated. It will be presented to the City Council at their next regular meeting, which will be on May 28th. That's not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. Are there any questions on the process for the validation or anything on the petition I can help answer?
How many names are on the petition, have to be on the petition before it can be validated?
So that is determined based on the number of registered voters. It's 5% of our registered voters. In this case, that calculation was 4,888 names needed to be valid.
And how many were on?
They submitted around 10,300, and we were able to validate 6,300 of those, approximately. Not sure how to answer that page. So what we did is we followed the process that we followed in the past to validate. We have the pages in front of us, and we have voter registration rolls from each of our counties. And we have staff that go through the printed pages, look for the names in the voter registration rolls, and we just ensure that it's filled out in accordance with the Texas election code, that it has all the information there. And if it does, then we validate them, and if one does not, then we would invalidate that line.
When was the official validation of the signatures? Michael Kubio, Globe News.
We've been working on this since we received it on April 28th, Michael, and we officially validated it yesterday. So what we did is we worked through every signature validated page by page. In essence, there were 781 pages to this petition with up to 15 signatures per page. So we worked through that process, validating every single page, and then went back and tallied them up to get the total that were valid. So officially as of yesterday, and we sent a letter to the initiating committee. That's the step lined out in our charter that we have to notify them. So we sent a letter to them in the mail yesterday. They should get that probably today, letting them know that it was valid and letting them know that City Council will receive the petition on the 28th.
So some people that are with the initiative committee said their sources told them yesterday it was complete. So is that a normal process, or is that something that just came out of nowhere?
I can't really speak to that. I can tell you the process was that we mailed that to the committee members, and then we sent electronic mail copying it to council and city management.
Pioneer, of the signatures that were not able to be validated, was there a common theme, or were there any specific problems that came with those? Or?
There were several different reasons we were unable to validate some of the pages. So each page, each part had an affidavit at the bottom, and on some of those, Mr. Dawson, the affidavit was not filled out properly, and so that invalidated that page of signatures. Some of the other common things that invalidated them was they were not a registered voter that we could find on the rolls. They did not select their county. Because we are in 2 counties, state code actually requires that they say what county they're in, and there were several pages where someone did not select Randall or Potter. And then there were some where they lived outside. We had people in Canyon, for example, or Borger, or other cities that signed the petition.
Stephanie, Dave Richard, my friends from here. Can you tell us how many city staff were used to validate the signatures, and what other city resources were used to go through this process? Because obviously this is a long process to make sure that all the signatures.
Mm-hmm. So we had 2 primary city staff working on this, Dan, myself, and our assistant city secretary. And then we pulled in resources from various departments, and we used probably approximately 12 different city staff that came in for maybe 2-hour to 4-hour sessions, and we trained them on how to validate, and they validated alongside us with us there to provide questions. As far as other resources, of course, we made copies of the entire petition, and so some minor resources there, but most of it was manpower, and about 12 to 14 of us total.
Hey, Sonia Channel 10, on the City Council online forum, it would discuss the withdrawing of signatures. Are you able to tell us how many, if any, there were withdrawn?
Yes, and for the privacy of the individual, I won't share who, but we did receive 1 affidavit to withdraw the signature. And during our process, we did locate that individual's signature, and we did strike a line through it and remove that one. Any other questions?
Don't say any of your questions. Now's the time.
If not, we'll
Trayvon's waiting.
hand it over to Mayor Stanley for the questions that he can answer.
You need a mic. Appreciate you guys and your patience on that. He had a microphone that went dead. Mayor Cole, Stanley, City of Amarillo, I'd like to thank Dave Henry for setting all this up. Last minute, of course. We didn't know any of this until really very end of the workday yesterday. And then to our city secretary as well, appreciate her professionalism and, as always, doing her due diligence to get everything out and follow procedure to make sure that everything in the process is followed. And we've been through this one other time in the previous year. We had another petition. I actually was on that committee, and it wasn't validated. So I think our population is learning a great deal on what this process needs to be. And I'm in favor of the fact that this is the real, true voice of the voter. And so from whatever happens from here, I think what we're doing is we're honoring the system that we've all kind of pledged to. So I don't really have any statements that I need to make here. I think the city secretary did a good job of kind of putting forward the news for you guys, and I would love to just handle questions and take them in whatever order you'd like to give them. Yes, sir.
Of course, I heard the news that here in Clarendon will also offer this, and they did a unanimous rejection of it. Is City Council here in Amarillo going to take that into consideration of their research of the sanctuary city here?
Well, Trayvon, that's a great question. This has been done and petitioned all across the state in the way in which you've seen citizens that have brought this forward to multiple commissions and councils. I think you've seen the city of Amarillo choose to do this fairly differently in the way in which we have taken our time. We have walked through some very lengthy meetings to make sure that all those voices get their opportunity to speak. And I think that what you'll see council do next is what we have intended to do much of this time from, I'd say, the point in which that we were educated on what the state law currently contains, and then what this petition could do in increasing some things that would be regulatory on the private right of action. So moving forward, I think you're going to see council move forward with the plan that council has always maintained. And then that in no way will negate what the citizens have as an opportunity to put this petition on the ballot.
Trevor again for ABC 7. If this ordinance does get passed, how will you guys enforce it?
So the great thing about this particular ordinance that is being referenced by this petition, there's no enforcement mechanism for the city of Amarillo. The city of Amarillo has no role in enforcing any of this. The entirety of this draft that they've put forward, all private right of action.
Okay, News Channel 10, could you explain what you mean by private right of action in layman's terms?
Sure, and Paige, we'll get to you next. Thank you for the question. So I'm not an attorney. I have no legal expertise. I can only tell you what I've been told, what I've learned, and what I read the petition to say. So it creates a private right of action, which just means simply the ability for one citizen to sue another citizen for something that they would derive out of the description in that ordinance.
News Channel 10. Your online form, a lot of it is going back and forth of verbiage. What's different between the state and the city of Amarillo? How important is that to get that correct for the city of Amarillo as opposed to what the state law currently is?
Paige, thank you for that question. I think that current council, as a body, and then myself personally, we fully stand behind everything that the state of Texas has done and the current state laws. And then we see a lot of validity in that. We see that this ordinance wants to expand or maybe further some other actions that can be taken in addition to what's currently state law. So we've learned quite a bit about 170A, 171, all of the body of that text. So if you look at state law, the main difference that I would point to with this ordinance versus current state law is state law provides some more descriptive venues. It provides for your attorney general to take action, a criminal act for those things that truly make the state of Texas a sanctuary state. So the question that follows that is, well, then why make Amarillo a sanctuary city? If you live in a sanctuary state, what are you really accomplishing here? I believe personally that it's important to stand up and stand for things that you believe in, and also stand behind your state. Can we do that in a way that is not overreaching in some areas? I believe we can. I think that's what we're trying to balance here.
ABC 7. Which way are you and the council leaning towards regarding the petition?
Trayvon, I think that what the council has is we have requested the city attorney to create a draft that lines up with state law. I've seen this draft. I think we would be able to put this forward on the 28th, that meeting, have a good discussion, offer that as a potential amendment, leave all options on the table with this steering committee, this petitioning committee. If they make recommendations, we would listen and entertain any of those potential amendments.
I think that because we've gone through this for this length of time, I don't feel that the council has 3 votes that would be in favor of this ordinance as it's written. So I don't believe that you would see us accept it and put it as ordinance. I also don't believe that it would be necessary for council to reject this ordinance. It has the petition signatures, it's been validated, it's earned the right to go forward to the ballot in November if that steering committee decides to do that. And the two are not, they're not adverse to each other. Meaning if council takes action on a draft, it doesn't prevent this from going forward in November. And if something were to fail in November, it wouldn't negate what council would do here as an ordinance. Mr. Butcher.
Mayor Stanley, obviously this issue has been hotly debated in the community. And issues like this also have a tendency to cause a lot of division in the community. So what would be the biggest thing you would like to say to the citizens of Amarillo as we move forward with this process?
Well, I appreciate that question, and just so everybody can hear that if that's off mic, what's the difference in Amarillo and the community? Because this is a very divisive topic and can be. Not necessarily the first thing you should bring up on Thanksgiving dinner with your relatives, right? So one thing that's very encouraging, you've seen our community and the Panhandle spirit that rests here truly respect each other's points of view. We did what they said we couldn't do. They said you cannot bring this out and allow everybody to talk. And for hours and hours, we had public comment, and everybody got to say their piece. Did we have signs? Was there passion in the audience? Absolutely. Was there respect and honor and dignity for everyone in the room? Absolutely. I think that that reflects good leadership in our community, and that reflects the character that we have here represented in the people. So can we maintain this all the way to November? That is a question the petitioning committee will have to decide for themselves, because only they would be the ones that would push this forward to November.
So I know there was a lot of debate on the legalities of this process, and a lot of members of council have been studying over this. Is there any concern on your part that what they're asking for may not exactly be in line with the state law?
Yes.
Follow up. Are you also concerned that because, to a great degree, no jurisdiction has ever brought any kind of suit against anyone for traveling through any jurisdiction? So are you concerned this is being kind of used basically as a symbolic gesture, but it does nothing as far as preventing abortions? People say that they're against abortion, but these kind of regulations have not stopped one person from having an abortion. In fact, the mechanism just charges a penalty after the abortion. So are you kind of concerned about this not truly creating a measure to prevent abortion?
So, Mr. Cuviello, I think you're getting to what we would describe as a deterrent. So in the way in which there's no enforcement on the front end, what we're looking at is a deterrent. And so not my position to weigh in on whether this is a valid deterrent or not. I think that we would agree that any law and any measure that's given, be it private right of action or public enforcement, can have a deterring effect, and that the goal would be to further protect life. I sit on a council that's 100% pro-life. We obviously have made some statements where some of us aren't pro-life enough for you, right? Maybe you're more pro-life than I am. I don't know. I just know I'm pro-life. And all that means is that I want to do whatever I'm supposed to do in my capacity to further protect life in the womb. Now, the definitions and when that starts and all of the nuances is what we argue about, but what we're not arguing about is the validity of this ordinance to protect life in the way in which I think we would agree that it's a deterrent. Does it do more than that? You know, I'd leave that up to each person to decide for themselves. And then there are things we do in civic action and in our communities that don't 100% solve a problem. They're just steps toward in the right direction of what we think it would solve the problem. And so the state of Texas has acted. What the council's prepared to do is directly in line with state law and what the state has defined.
Trayvon, ABC7.
Yes, sir.
So Texas is a sanctuary state, so does passing this ordinance open the city to unnecessary lawsuits?
So I would just tell you, this is a personal opinion. This has no bearing or relevance legally, and I'm not qualified to speak other than just my opinion. I think that this ordinance, if put on the ballot and passes, likely ends up in a challenge because of the civil liberties that could be enjoined, in the way in which the language is written. And so I think that this committee, the petitioners, have weighed that, and I think that if you ask most of them, could this get you sued? I think most of them would say, yeah, it could. They probably waver back and forth as to whether or not that's a good use of taxpayer monies, because it would be the taxpayer money that would pay for that. Yes, sir, Mr. Butcher.
Honestly, this ordinance was not produced by the city of Amarillo staff or by the council. It was produced by an outside group that brought it as a petition and presented it to the city. Can you explain a little bit further, as the council looks at this ordinance, some of the changes and some of that process that the council could possibly make to this ordinance?
So I would tell you that, Jonathan Mitchell's the attorney that has had his hand on this one. He's a well-respected attorney. I believe has argued a couple times, if not more than that, in front of the Supreme Court. He's had a hand in some state legislation as well. SB 8 lines up a lot with this ordinance. And so this ordinance is not the same as 50 of the other ones that have been passed around the state. They all differ and have changed as time has gone on, and different communities have altered things. This steering committee has the opportunity to do anything that they choose with this. However, it has to be accepted as an amendment to that, and then the way in which it's amended has some legal consequences based on the signatures that were presented. So to what extent you could amend that, I don't know. But the form of it, I think, is pretty much in line with the big items. The top 3 items, I think, are what council has addressed and will address, and I think would be 95% satisfactory. So, if we can't get you 100% of the way there, is 95 good enough? Any other questions? Trayvon, let me get Noah real quick. I'll come right back to you, sir.
Roland Dawson, Emerald Pioneer. The city is also currently undergoing or being in the process of undergoing a charter review. Do you have any concerns should this petition ordinance end up on the ballot? Would that affect the charter amendments?
The concern there would be that we're going into a very heated, politically divided nation, as well as, other contests that are going to be on that November ballot. And the more things that are on that November ballot, the good thing is we're going to get good voter turnout. The negative in that is, how many items are you willing to stay focused on and study up by the time you get to the end of that? So I think whatever gets on this ballot in November needs to be precise, simple, and easy for our community to understand what it will do. Yeah, I have a few concerns, but not in control of any of those. Trayvon.
All right. So speaking to one of the Fair New Council members yesterday, she told me that one of the reasons they did reject it was because this might divide their community. Is that playing into a part in your guys' decision, maybe looking at this ordinance, maybe pass it?
No, I don't think so. I think that we had that discussion whenever we were willing to take this up on behalf of our citizens to bring it forward in a public setting. The discussion then was, hey, is this worth it? You're going to divide the community. And I think council spoke pretty loudly at that time where, we're called to lead, not to prevent conversations and not to try to keep the status quo. So, change, even if it's good, is usually resisted. And so what comes with change is you have to be willing to have a mature adult-like conversation, and we trust our community. We trusted them when they all came, and they dealt with each other civilly several times in the chamber. And so the division in this subject has already been had, and I don't think that, this conversation that's going to come up is going to further divide anyone. And I do know that most of my citizens are ready to see this in the rearview mirror, and let's move on to more city business.
So are you concerned as the mayor of the city that the Supreme Court has basically weighed in that the states have their say on abortion. But basically, they haven't stated that citizens do not have the right of free travel. So are you concerned that an ordinance such as this, even though the city will not be the one going through it, would be an abridgment on people's right of free travel?
So you're asking a question that assumes that this ordinance would prevent travel. And so I'm not going to fast forward to anybody's decision that would say that this ordinance could ever do that. However, I would tell you that constitutionally, as a conservative who loves the republic that he lives in, we always want to protect these civil rights and right of travel, right of speech. Freedom to move is greatly important, and we should never be in favor of anything that would ever limit that. That's a super dangerous thing to abridge, and once you're on that road, it's hard to get turned around. So I think that that is well cautioned. But this ordinance specifically, I'm not telling anyone that this ordinance would limit travel.
So don't see that if you're saying that you could be you could be sued for traveling with a person who did an abortion in another state where it's legal. You do not see how that could be construed as well,
let me-
right of travel?
Let me answer that in the way that the state answered it under aiding and abetting. So if I get my numbers right, great. If I get them wrong, then somebody will correct me, I'm sure, with an email. But I think it's 171.208, that's aiding and abetting. So if you're aiding and abetting, that includes travel. And so that includes reimbursement, that includes procuring, and multiple things. So the state's already spoken on this. So whether or not you can drive down this county road X or down that I-40 drive has really nothing to do with the fact that aiding and abetting is aiding and abetting. Ms. Page, you go right ahead.
Page Dr. News Channel 10. So the state law does have a vague understanding of it's a little bit more vague with the Heartbeat Act and not knowing when is it fertilization that it starts. How do y'all plan to make sure that that's not as vague as the state has it so that there's not any kind of confusion for the community?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's important to have your defined terms, which are defined in 171. State defines fertilization as the point of conception and every other embryonic or gestational period and stage. And so that does not necessarily line up specifically with SB 8 of 6 to 8 weeks on the Heartbeat Act. But if you look at it, what the Heartbeat Act was it was a step in the process to get where we're at. So do we always have to refer back to a step in the process, or can we just stand where we stand? So I believe that council would take action to further clearly define in a draft that would be put forth that we would accept as an updated ordinance that defines fertilization point of conception.
Sorry, Page Dr. News Channel 10. So obviously May 28th is when y'all are coming back together to discuss this and what do you see as the next steps? Just clearly detail what those next steps look like.
Yeah, and we can ask City Secretary if she needs to more clearly define anything on the legal side or the procedure. Council wants to have a discussion. So we're going to invite everyone to continue to engage and speak on this. We will have to set aside some exclusivity to the conversation that can be had with this steering committee and the petition committee to see if they would entertain maybe a draft from council in lieu of this 18-page draft. If that's not part of it, then I think they have a clear decision to make. Council would not be able to vote on anything on the 28th. We're not trying to rush this. I think this council has always kind of despised the Friday afternoon notice with a Tuesday up and down vote real quick and then let's move on. So we'd put it on a following meeting, and if we had to, we'd call a special work session, or no, I'm sorry, not a work session, but a special session, to where we could just dedicate some time to continue to discuss this and vote on it. I think that the draft could pass, and if it fails, then we've done our job to represent, our own core belief.
So let's say that the council, we go through the public hearing, and we go through the vote and everything, and the council decides that, we vote no against this, okay? And we think it's better in the hands of the voters. Do we have enough time to get this on the ballot
Yes. So I think city secretary could confirm that, but what's our last date? August what? August 19th. So we have time. And then we're hard workers down here. This council likes to work hard. So we are walking, chewing gum, texting, driving all same time, you know, here trying to get to the point of charter amendment, charter review, sanctuary city, city manager search. Like there's time to get to this, but the more that we can focus on any one thing here, I think the more deliberate we can be, and we're trying to act appropriately and with great consideration. I think you had a question.
Yeah, Singleton, camera local 4. Why would there be a need for a local addition to what the state is already doing? Because like you said whenever it came to travel, and how that taking steps in that direction is an overreach, it's hard to undo. I think if you swap right to travel with reproductive rights, are we not doing the same thing just with a different right?
Sure. There's great validity in what you said. And the question is, well, if the state's already done it and they have jurisdiction, they have the authority, why would a municipality ever feel like they need to do anything? Well, here's the answer. Local matters most. And all of your state laws are derived from those local bases and foundations. And so giving your citizen and your constituent the right to have a voice at the local level is very important if you want to be adequately represented at the state level. So if I'm your only voice on once a year state legislative requests, then honestly, we're not going to be very productive. And so this is the system we signed up for, and this is part of the process. And it does no harm for a municipality to come out and just state, like, hey, we have a local ordinance that says speed limits are important. And you know what? TxDOT agrees with it, right? And so this can come right in line with that. I do see the difference in a local municipality maybe taking a jurisdiction that it doesn't rightfully have legally. So we want to be very cautious that we don't step over and across the line to go against anything that the state has defined. We're not trying to redefine state law, and I think that as long as we're mindful of that, we'll make good choices. I saw somebody, but I can't remember who it is. Yes, sir.
From us, Emerald Pioneer, you mentioned the city has a potential ordinance that it's looking at different from the ordinance in petition, and that there may be negotiations. Has anyone from the city or from city council, to your knowledge, engaged in any negotiations thus far with the petition committee regarding?
So let me correct one word that you said there, and the question was the city has this draft, so the council specifically. So we don't want to misrepresent the city of Amarillo in any way. None of this would become, I would say, city until you saw council move as a body. Council had requested the city attorney to draft certain items that could more clearly define what state law says. And then in the way in which that's been done, council remains independent as individuals. So every councilman continues to engage with citizens on both sides. I've received multiple drafts that, you know, some are pro-life, some are pro-choice. I've had multiple engagements with lots of people. I'm sure other council has as well. We're not limiting, myself or the city, not limiting council to engage with any of the constituents on this item.
Has anyone from the council, to your knowledge, engaged with discussions with the initiating committee as to what they would accept and revise?
So I'm unaware of like what would be an amendment that would be acceptable. I have had one conversation with two ladies that are very active on that petition committee, and they did state that they felt like the committee would entertain an amendment, but no specifics as to what the amendment would look like. Yes, sir. Okay, man, we're all done. I hate to stand up here too long because then you guys will come up with more questions, right, Trayvon? And Cuviello always has one more. Are there not 3 or 4 other topics you want to ask me while I'm standing here? Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Michael Cuviello, Glow News.
Dang it.
So you mentioned aiding and abetting. Do you see that driving your loved one to another state where it's legal to do certain things
Yes.
is considered aiding and abetting?
Oh, that's a really good question. So
As
I,
far as legal?
I consider that the states' rights are more important than the federal role, and that those states' rights matter, and the federal role should only engage when the state can't or doesn't have the capacity to manage that. And then below that, the municipal level is even more important of making sure those states' rights reflect those communities. Now, people that may choose to do legal or illegal things in other states, that act should be totally held responsible on the person that commits the act. In that state that chooses not to hold them criminally responsible, perhaps. So, if we take a state that allows for the, recreational use of marijuana, do I believe that the person that drove the person to that state to engage in recreational use that's legal in that state aided and abetted them in that? And I just have to tell you, personal responsibility is where all that lies. And so I'm personally responsible here in this state to abide by these rules and to stand up for what I believe in. People have the right to travel, and it's very important. And so when you behave in a different way in a different state, that's on you. And I wouldn't conflate the civil right of action as a needed measure, for the person that drove and ignore the person that committed the act.
Even though the act is committed in a state where it's legal to commit that act?
I think it relies on the person. So, we have moral and we have legal, and the morality of it doesn't change, even if there's a line there where something is illegal or legal. And I think that this is what we're looking for in leaders and in our fellow citizens is personal responsibility. Man, I would like to have you guys just give yourselves a great big round of applause for being so gracious with us here today. It's a hard topic. You guys are a fantastic press, and we appreciate you coming in and taking some time with this one and accurately reporting on it. So you guys have a great afternoon, and hopefully we will know more on the 28th. Thank y'all.